Hello everyone, Spooky Guy 444 here. It's been a while, a long time since I've done a video in this sort of style, and I know it's one that you guys all really love, and I do want to apologize for not making these lot of videos. Just haven't really had the time to push out these longer, more documentary-ish style videos, and I really want to double down on this one and a few other ones that I've been sitting on for quite some time because I think they're great ideas, and I think you guys would really enjoy them. Over a year ago, I made a video called The Impact of Towering Clown, and that video was a massive success. Everybody loved that video from what I saw, and it did justice at going over what the Towering Clown has done for the industry. And I wanted to do that again. But today I want to talk about everyone's favorite giant skeleton. The Home Depot's 12-foot skeleton is one that I think all of you should know by now. There's not a lot for me to say here. Basically, in this video, we're going to be going over the history of how the 12-foot skeleton was made, its origin story, the people behind it, and what it has done for the haunt industry, because I can promise you, in the 2-year span the 12-foot skeleton's been around, he's done more for the industry than most items ever. So yeah. Without much to say, I'm Spooky Guy 444, and I present to you the impact of the 12-foot skeleton. There's really so many ways that I could actually start this video. It's really hard to pinpoint a time and place exactly where I think that we can begin the origin story when it comes to the 12-foot skeleton, but I think the best way to do this is actually talking about the professional haunt industry, as that actually played a huge role in something that we are going to get into later on down the road. And what better place to start with the origins of the professional haunt industry with IAAPA, or IAAPA. This was basically a theme park or attraction convention that has been active since 1918. Obviously, it wouldn't be until around the 90s that we'd actually be seeing more of these Halloween items come into fruition, with the rise of companies such as Distortions Unlimited being one of the biggest factors in the haunt industry, period. However, it wouldn't be until the early 2000s that we got any type of large, oversized, grand animatronics, and that came from companies such as Scare Factory and Unit 70. Both of these companies are still to this day going over and beyond what it is to be a towering prop, making props that are over the 10-foot, 12-foot, 15-foot mark, and the largest animatronic to date, the Necromancer, is at a staggering 20 feet tall. And that's really one of the biggest origin stories when it comes to these larger-than-life animatronics. But another part that we really need to get into is the world of inflatables. Inflatables have really been the center market for decades with the oversized area. Obviously, not every inflatable is oversized, not like every animatronic is oversized, but there have been inflatables that have obviously topped the 10-foot mark, the 12-foot mark, and the 20-foot mark. And even now to this day, they're still making these 20-foot inflatables and actually pushing them more than ever. The inflatable world is very different from the haunt world, obviously, in a lot of aspects, and they have collided more than once, and sometimes it fails, sometimes it succeeds. But the inflatables definitely might have played a role in this oversized world, and I really think that's one of the reasons that the skeleton was made was due to Home Depot's tons and tons of oversized inflatables, obviously going over 12-foot, 13-foot. These are some big inflatables, and I think it was a catalyst for our big skeleton boy. Now, these next two things that I want to actually go over are seasonal visions, which actually began back as Mario Kyoto in the early 90s going into the mid to late 2000s. And this is kind of where SVI got their start, especially with their main designer, Mike Reynolds. Basically, Mario Kyoto specialized more in static latex figures and a lot of masks and costuming, and that's how it's been for their basically entire runtime. However, that changed around 2006. 2006 and 2007 brought their first sound and light animatronic, and that came in the lines of the Willow Witch. Now granted, it wasn't animated, but it did have sound, and it was sound activated, so it was a step in the right direction. SVI had been around longer and was actually making latex pieces, but this was still around the time when they were more of a Mario Kyoto sister company. And this actually would change around 2007 to 2008. In 2008, Seasonal Visions would actually release their first animatronic, and that came in the likes of the Nightmare Reaper, which in theory is a very simple design, a generic Reaper, very good sculpt, no sound, but was animated with a reindeer motor that would actually power its head and arm. It was a pretty neat animatronic, especially for the time, and it was exclusive via QVC, so it was probably pretty expensive as well. But this was a step in the direction for SVI, and he's actually a pretty large prop too. So they kind of started off with this more oversized vibe. Granted, he wasn't towering. That would come later down the road. Around 2011 to 2012 is actually when SVI really started kicking off this towering animatronic type of world, and when they brought the Angel of Death. The Angel of Death was really the start of towering animatronics. Obviously, there had been some prior to that. There's been towering animatronics in the non-professional world, even before Angel of Death. More specifically, Mario Kyoto actually made a towering prop in the Reaper Executioner static, and that was kind of the first documented retail world that wasn't like very super limited at the time, 7-foot plus prop. And SVI took that and made the Angel of Death a very iconic prop, still to this day. Very popular, very well known. And that is really where the retail world got their first taste of towering stuff, is with those 3 Reapers. That would then lead to a strand of towering props, and Towering Clown would then come soon in 2017, which really was the catalyst for that towering agenda that would take over not only the towering industry, but just clowns in the haunt industry. And that is really where we get to more of our modern day stuff. In 2017, Home Depot, of course, why wouldn't it be, would actually release our first taste of this really beyond oversized 7-foot plus world that actually exceeded that mark, and that was their online exclusive Gargantuan Spider, which was a very popular item, so popular actually that they brought it back last year and it's still being produced. And Costco had its own variant with the Black Widow in roughly 2017-2018 as well. Now, the spider world is very different, and they could honestly make a video on the impact of the Gargantuan Spider alone, as that could honestly get tied back to Jumping Spider, as there's been a lot of these oversized spiders that have been flooding the market recently, and that's definitely thanks to this Gargantuan Spider. So I think that he's another really good catalyst for why we are seeing so many items of that moniker. He was also one of the first outdoor rated animatronics. Granted, he's not really animatronic, he's kind of just a sound and a light piece, but this was really the first sign of those outdoor grade items as well. Fast forward to early 2020, and SVI shows us some brand new, never before seen technology at the Morris Costumes booth at the Halloween and Party Expo. An animatronic was there that goes by the name of Wailing Phantom. While this animatronic is not very well acclaimed, this was really the first time that we saw the digital eye LCD screen technology, and that technology is extremely important to this day. That is still being used on animatronics to this day. And sadly, the last main catalyst for our 12-foot skeleton was the monster that crashed our lives in early 2020 with COVID-19. Obviously, COVID, very bad thing, still going on. I hope everyone is staying safe during these times. With that being said, though, COVID was the catalyst for something in the haunt world as well. People were stuck at home, and they didn't know what to do. So, they decided to decorate. And that is where a lot of this growth in Home Depot specifically actually came from the past couple of years, is because they saw the overabundance of decorating that came with COVID, because people were stuck at home and wanted something to do during the holidays. So Home Depot took that idea and ran with it wholeheartedly. So before we get into the rest of the video, before we actually get on to basically the events leading up to the 12-foot skeleton, I actually want to talk about Home Depot's staple items. Basically, every year since 2018, there has been a staple item. Let me explain. A staple item is basically the creations that Home Depot has that are really made to be attraction gatherers, show stoppers, big, bulky, huge boxes, grand items. Let me go over some examples. In 2018, they had the dragon. 2019, they had the pirate ship. You could also argue Headless Horseman, Dark Angel, so on, so forth. And obviously, who was the attraction stopper of 2020? Well, let's talk about the events leading up to him. So, what were some of the main events that led up to the release of the 12-foot skeleton come 2020 after everything that I just talked about? There is a few things. Around mid-July, Home Depot actually put up a teaser photo announcing that the Halloween stuff was coming soon. And in this photo, it was kind of a cemetery. We could see some items such as the Winged Demon, I believe the hearse. Not really looking at the photo right now, so I don't quite remember too well, but I do remember Winged Demon was in it, I think a few other items. And of course, a centerpiece was this massive skeleton that no one had ever seen before, and a lot of people were really interested in this prop. Now, was it the best thing that we've ever seen? We didn't know. We thought that it wouldn't be that tall, but we knew that it was gigantic. It would only come about a week or so later that we got confirmation that this skeleton was 12 feet tall. And that was incredible. Now, this was before anything had dropped on the website. We were getting some more Home Depot items surfacing here and there, such as the Gravedigger, Jack-in-the-Box, and Werewolf, all getting videos posted from people that got early access to them, and they looked absolutely spectacular. And of course, when that day came on the online drop day, we got to see this video here.
Go big this year with the 11.5-foot giant skeleton with Life Eyes technology. This massive skeleton has a lifelike texture and is semi-posable thanks to hinged shoulder joints. And its haunting, lifelike eyes that move and blink will thrill and delight. Easy assembly, stable supports, and on-off timer make this towering behemoth user-friendly. And thanks to a weather-resistant frame, it'll loom over guests for years to come. This 11.5-foot giant skeleton with Life Eyes is a showstopper.
Obviously, around another month went by, and people that did enjoy the skeleton were buying it. The hype wasn't all there yet. However, when stores started getting in the 12-foot skeleton is when things really started to change. This is when Twitter discovered the skeleton, and people that had already bought it, had it up in their yard, were posting this item everywhere. Twitter, Facebook, owners on YouTube were getting mass amounts of views. This was a big deal. And this immediately became a trend for the Halloween season to get this skeleton in your yard. And with that being said, it was no surprise that by the time October rolled around, the 12-foot skeleton was gone from every store. And basically everything that was in stores didn't even last until the sale, which is now a sadly reoccurring trend for us haunters that want to give stuff for cheap. So with that in mind, the Facebook groups were one of the biggest catalysts for why the skeleton is so popular. There are Facebook groups of this skeleton that have over 60,000 members. But sadly, with that comes the biggest trend of all, and that is one of the worst for us haunters. With the 12-foot skeleton came the scalpers. The scalpers were people that would arrive at the Home Depot and buy several. They would buy out the whole store and get the 12-foot skeletons, and they would then sell them on eBay, Mercari, OfferUp, whichever marketplace, whichever you may choose, for over $1,000, sometimes over $5,000, sometimes around $5,000. It really depends on how lucky you get, whether you'd be finding one for $500 or $1,500. And no matter what that price was, they would sell. Sadly, this would go on to become a trend with animatronics from not only Home Depot, but older spirit life sizes became overinflated in price, and it's still a reoccurring issue to this day. Newer animatronics are having an inflated price due to the resale value. But this is basically what were the events of 2020 come the skeleton. He would also get posted around Christmas time on the Home Depot's official Instagram, which was pretty cute, and was a really good way for the skeleton to get some more clout. But that didn't come until 2021 when he became more of a fan service. So, before we continue on to talk about some of the props that he influenced alone, let's talk about his origins. Who made the 12-foot skeleton? Well, it's none other than a man known as Lance Allen. Lance Allen is the creative director for the Home Depot's holiday decor. And obviously, he's responsible for not only 12-foot skeleton, but for most, if not everything, that you've seen the past decade. And obviously, this is a very talented man, and that has been shown in a lot of Home Depot's work. They do absolutely incredible jobs and have been for almost half a decade now. And you know what? I don't think he's going to be leaving anytime soon. I think we're going to continue to see innovation from Lance and how he actually came to be with this skeleton. During an interview from Insider on October 30th, 2020, they actually interviewed the Lance Allen. And when that came to mind, we were able to get some insight on how he was made. Basically, he was kind of based off of the idea of, like we had said earlier, the professional haunt industry and their trade shows, where they always went larger than life, they went beyond professional and made incredible works. And obviously, there are tons of oversized skeletons that have been in the pro haunt industry from several companies, and I'm sure that those were the biggest inspiration for this guy. Another thing were classic horror films, and films in general were also huge inspirations for the skeleton. Originally, though, corporate at Home Depot wasn't actually a fan of his size. They wanted to make him smaller. But thanks to Lance, we were actually able to get this guy in his full 12-foot form, and even go bigger and beyond with animatronics that we'll be getting to soon. So thanks to Lance, we could have gotten this guy smaller. He could have been maybe an 8-foot skeleton. Another thing we'll get to sooner. And that's really great to see that we were able to get him in his full form thanks to Lance and his perseverance, along with the team that worked by him to create this amazing piece, which I'm also now happy to own. So with that out of the way, what else is there to even talk about? We've gone over his whole history, how he was made, some of the possible inspirations behind him, credited or uncredited. How about we talk about some of the animatronics that have come after him that are clearly heavily influenced by the 12-foot skeleton. I think the best place to start is in early 2021 with Morris Costumes releasing their Towering Reaper. Now, the Towering Reaper in concept is nothing new. There was the Spear Halloween 2018 10-foot Towering Reaper, and obviously this new one has the same audio, so obviously there wasn't full inspiration from the 12-foot skeleton. However, they have the exact same head. So obviously, if it weren't for 12-foot skeleton, that Reaper would have either not existed at all, or would have been a completely different design. Now, with this Towering Reaper, this was the first sign of any of these 12-foot items ever reoccurring. Since oversized items weren't completely uncommon, as there were larger and bigger life sizes before the 12-foot skeleton, like I mentioned before, the newer one was the 10-foot Towering Reaper. And a lot of the 8-foot, 7-foot stuff was really starting to get big on the market, especially via Morris Costumes. So when they brought together this Towering Reaper, that was one of the biggest plays that we had seen from them. Now, Home Depot would then, that very same year, release cosmetics for the 12-foot skeleton, which was a pretty cute idea. I think I quite like it. It's sad to see that it didn't actually come back again this year, to my absolute knowledge. However, they sold a witch, a farmer, and a Santa outfit for the skeleton. All cute, and I'm sure all of them sold just as well as the skeleton itself. Now, this is where stuff gets really big. Thanks to the 12-foot skeleton selling so well, they knew that they had to give him a friend. That's when Lance Allen and his team came up with none other than the Inferno Pumpkin Skeleton. The Inferno Pumpkin Skeleton, or short Inferno Pumpkin, is one of the most badass props I have ever seen. Personally, this is my favorite of the 12-foot line ever, and I don't foresee that ever changing. He's just so impressive. The detail work is amazing, the looks is amazing, and I love that he's a giant pumpkin monster. He really does steal the show. While the skeleton itself is also spectacular, he just ramps up the skeleton 12-foot design to a whole other level. And it really is incredible to see either of the two of these items in person, especially when they were side by side in store. Now, with that being said, we have two animatronics to talk about that seem to be heavily inspired by our buddy Skelly. While the Inferno Pumpkin was a huge catalyst and sold just as well as the skeleton did, we need to go a little smaller. When 2021 rolled around, there were two things a lot of people had in mind. What was Home Depot going to bring to the table and what was Spirit going to bring to the table. Obviously, the two are basically have been neck and neck since, I want to say, about 2019. Both of them have been releasing incredible work since then and even earlier. However, the competition was really starting to get tight, and it's even tighter now. That's when we first got a glimpse at Spirit Halloween's leaks that year. There was a familiar skeleton-type item that was on the ISE in the front theme. This was a skeleton with a hard hat on. No one was really sure what it was. At first, many theories came to mind that perhaps it was an 8-foot variant of the 12-foot skeleton, and nothing more, nothing less, which people seemed interested in at first, but wasn't going to be anything to be blown away by, and it would be kind of a cheap cop-out for Spirit. However, that is not at all what happened. You see, in the months leading up to this, there was a massive accidental leak via the SVI office. Basically, they have a virtual tour on their website, and in this virtual tour, they accidentally leaked several 2021 concepts and animatronics from various stores. Some of these listed are the Baphomet concept art, the UK exclusive version of the Headless Horseman, the Rotting Reaper. List goes on, and there is a lot to go over. However, one thing stands out that we're going to be talking about today, and that's his head here. When everyone saw this, they were very confused. It kind of just looked like a talking boar's head by Fright Props. Why was it at the SVI office? Soon we would find out from the Graveyard Shift. It got to show us some of the best props that came out that year, and one of them, none other than being Grimm. Now, you're probably wondering, how does 12-foot skeleton tie into Grimm? Well, not only is he a fully blow-molded skeleton just like the 12-foot skeleton, he is also by the same company, and Spirit knew, and they knew this wholeheartedly, that they needed to make competition to rival with the skeleton, so they made Grimm, and Grimm is an absolutely impressive and incredible piece. However, Home Depot gave Spirit the middle finger and made the Inferno Reaper. Now, there is discussion obviously which is better, Grimm or Inferno Reaper. Me personally, I am on the Inferno Reaper side. There is, I think, more pros to him. However, Grimm is an absolutely impressive animatronic. Actually, the most animated retail grade animatronic to date is Grimm. And he would not exist if it weren't for this 12-foot skeleton. That alone kind of proves to you just how important this thing was, is that it even made Spirit up their game so much. Now, Best Buy released an 8-foot skeleton that same year in 2021, and this was a surprise to a lot of people. Why was Best Buy getting into the Halloween world? And oddly enough, they didn't do it again this year. Well, a little trivia, that 8-foot skeleton was actually supposed to be for Spirit. They were going to sell that skeleton. Why they didn't is likely because of the existence of Grimm, which I think was a good decision. I think Grimm is definitely a much better animatronic than this 8-foot skeleton. However, obviously, this thing looks just like the 8-foot skeleton. It's just 4 feet shorter and has a moving mouth and phrases. It's not the absolute worst thing in the world. It's a pretty solid prop, nothing I would personally buy. However, it's obvious where the inspiration came from. Sunstar also made a 12-foot Reaper. They even cashed in on it, and this thing actually is really popular. Surprisingly, it sucks, but it's popular. Just thought I'd get into that. 8-foot Nutcracker, Christmas 2021. This is basically the Christmas version of the 12-foot skeleton, and it's a pretty cool piece. Is it one of the best items ever? No, I don't even think it's one of the best Christmas animatronics, but it's a very great prop, very great soundtrack, and it's outdoor rated, so obviously with 12-foot skeleton in mind. Not much to say about the Nutcracker, he played a big role. So, let's flash forward. It's 2022, and the Halloween season is starting to roll around, with Moore's Costumes finally showing us some of their lineup for Trans World. One of these animatronics is one that is pretty painfully obvious, inspired by our boy. The Moore's Costumes 8-foot skeleton with projection eyes included a new feature that wasn't quite digi-eyes, was actually projector eyes, which was basically just a ring light that shot into the eyes of whichever prop used this. It's a very popular opinion that this is not as good as digi-eyes, and it's kind of a crappy idea. I think in concept this could definitely work, but it would have to be pulled off very well. It's very stiff, robotic, and definitely not as good as our classic LCD screens. And closer into the season, we would actually see Joanne's get this exact prop with a different skin tone bone tone, I guess you could say. And that one was a whopping $500. Not many people bought it. We would also get that same year in 2022 the 10-foot Costco Reaper. And the 10-foot Costco Reaper is basically the Towering Reaper from last year, but with the servo technology and the same face mold as Grimm. So this one is objectively the best model of the Towering Reaper, as they all have the same audio. Just over the years they've had improved decals and obviously new added features. Hey guys, Future Spooky Guy 444 here, but this is probably a good time to actually mention 2021 and 2022's 10-foot Towering Witches. Completely forgot these things even existed. Both of them are, in my personal opinion, pretty forgettable, but just thought I'd put them there. In 2021, Party City / Halloween City got the 10-foot witch, and then Costco got their own variant in 2022. Back to your regularly scheduled program. Walmart would actually dabble into this lineup as well, as they made Pan Asian responsible for making a 10-foot skeleton, along with Big Lots getting a 9-foot witch. Pan Asian dabbling into this was definitely more unexpected, but not as unexpected as Gemmy Industries. You see, with Gemmy Industries, what is the last thing that you expect from them? Towering animatronics? Because personally, I agree with that statement. However, this year, we would be seeing something interesting. A 12-foot mummy, but it didn't stop there. Menards got a 12-foot Reaper, and Walmart got a 12-foot pumpkin. These were all extremely different for Gemmy. We have never really seen any of these, especially with the mummy. We haven't seen many mummy animatronics, and basically what Gemmy did was take the 12-foot concept, where most of them are static, and turn it up a notch, giving it a body turn and color-changing LEDs. Pretty neat concept. Is the mummy better than the skeleton? That's really up to personal opinion, as I do think it's great. It is not my personal favorite. However, it would be one that I would like to own maybe in the future. While at first it was rumored if he was even going to be a towering animatronic, let alone a 12-footer, Cackles the Clown was one of the most important and biggest animatronics to come out this season, as this was the first sign of a 12-foot clown. Now, while he isn't technically 12-foot, credit to whoever the photo this came from, this was kind of just sent to me, I'm not sure who took it. Obviously, Cackles isn't quite 12 feet tall, but he is a big, monstrous prop, coming in at a whopping $500. Now, this isn't all in chronological order. So, we got the Home Depot stuff, which came actually before the Party City stuff. And to start off with, the Smoldering Reaper. The Smoldering Reaper actually uses the 12-foot skeleton's face mold. He is basically an Inferno Reaper, but much, much taller, more of a booming voice, and it's up to personal preference whether you like him more or not. Personally, I still do enjoy the Inferno Reaper, but Smoldering Reaper is a great, great product. Now, let's get into the two biggest ones. Well, also not quite another 12-foot animatronic, but its hat makes it 12 feet tall. SVI would create the 12-foot witch, which is one of the most groundbreaking animatronics of all time. This is an outdoor rated animatronic. Her and Cackles are the first 12-footers to feature animation, aside from the Gemmy ones, and still be truly outdoor rated, unlike the Gemmy ones. Basically, what we're looking at here is the monstrous 12-foot witch, and she is an included head turn, mouth movement, and the LCD eyes. She has this amazing illusion where she looks like she's flying on the broom, and the broom is a massive, whopping 9 feet tall. And it's quite an impressive sight to see. While she isn't quite 12 foot like I did say, she is still an absolutely amazing piece. But let's talk about the largest retail animatronic ever. While it's not quite an animatronic as it is like the skeleton and the pumpkin, Home Depot would break more and more ground once more with the 15-foot Phantom. This thing is an absolute monster. Here are some pictures up on screens for some size comparison. Credit to Asylum of Nightmares for this photo, comparing this monstrous piece to the Regan animatronic from Spirit. This thing is just a beast, coming in at a decently priced $400. This is an important prop for sure. Other honorable mentions would obviously be things such as the 10-foot werewolf, as that one also definitely was inspired by the skeleton for that outdoor grade that we now have. But the Phantom is really what sticks out this year at Home Depot, and obviously all of these are selling extremely, extremely well. So, we've gone over the origins of him, things that may have influenced his creation, and the items that were impacted by his creation. What's left? Well, how about the biggest section of this entire video? The retail Halloween industry renaissance. So what am I talking about here? Let me explain. Take a look at stores the past couple years from around 2015, sometimes earlier, to 2020. Who are the main ones that you think of? Home Depot had somewhat of a lineup. Spear Halloween was always the main supplier. Walmart had slowed down like 1 or 2 life sizes every other year maybe. Lowe's would have their 2 or 3 items per year, and that was basically it. Nothing else really came close. There was At Home that had a few. Michael's would get in 1 or 2. Party City had the morbid animatronics and didn't really go above and beyond a Halloween City or Party City. And that was it. Let's flash forward to this year, and let me talk about this. Spear Halloween still goes harder than ever. Nothing has really even changed. Home Depot's lineup grows and grows in size and quantity, and that's thanks to the 12-foot skeleton. Sam's Club brings back life sizes, which is an absolute stun, and their life size lineup is growing ever more powerful, and the same can go for Lowe's. Lowe's, this is the largest lineup that they've ever had this year in 2022. While it isn't the most amazing lineup, it's one that I think could see promise in the slight future. Party City and Halloween City are going harder than ever, especially now with the death of Morbid Enterprises. And there's just so much more I can mention. Kroger, the grocery store Kroger, brought life sizes back. It has been since collapsible Jemmy era that they had a life size in their store. It's not done there yet though. Walmart's life sizes, this is the biggest lineup that they've ever had. It's just so much in so little time, and it's really all because people are finally starting to realize at corporate headquarters that Halloween sells just as much, if not more, than what Christmas sells. And I'm glad that people are finally seeing this, because the Halloween industry was in a much needed slump from around 2015 to around 2019, 2020. And it's really great to see that this is finally growing and we're back in an industry of growth and innovation across several companies and several stores. And it's all thanks to the 12-foot skeleton. So I have one more thing to add here. What's the future of the Halloween industry? Well, I see it as a future of promise. While it's going to be some oversized and tall promise, I think because of animatronics such as Grimm that were inspired by our skeleton friend, we're going to see some more advanced animatronics like Grimm, and we already have. Inferno Reaper, Smoldering Reaper, Smoldering Ghoul, Inferno Reaper. The list goes on. Strawman. The list goes on. There's just so the servo animatronics are growing ever more prevalent, towering animatronics are growing ever more prevalent, outdoor grade animatronics are growing ever more prevalent. There's just so many things that are growing, and I see zero signs of this trend slowing down. This is an era of innovation from every company, every store that we have not seen since the early 2000s, 2010s. And I love it. I think this is spectacular, and I think that this is needed to show us consumers and those retailers that Halloween is in, and it's not going to go anywhere soon. And with that out of the way, I hope you guys did enjoy the impact of the 12-foot skeleton. This was a big video, a big project, and I hope you guys did enjoy this. There was a lot to cover here. A lot of info was done. Go subscribe to everyone included in the credits. This was a great project, super fun to make, and I hope that I can make more of these and you guys will enjoy them just as much. I want to give a huge thanks to Lance Allen and the Home Depot team, Seasonal Visions International, and all the other stores following along on this journey for making the Halloween industry great again. I'm Spooky Guy 444, and I will see you all next time. Goodbye.